Well, hello, everybody. It's Thursday, January 19th, 2023. This is what's happening. I'm Andy Johnson. You're beginning to look at the program, this edition of it, AM Prime here on WESN. Let's tell you what's happening. In the second hour of the program, we'll be talking with Dr. Faith B. Israel. She's the Deputy Chief Secretary of the Tobago House of Assembly. To get to it, we'll be talking about the fact that 17 students to intern at the Tobago House of Assembly Health Division. They come from the Pacific Lutheran University in the United States. And that's the mood, but we will try to get a sense from her about what's happening on the ground with the politics and how the politics is mixed with the culture leading up to Carnival 2023 with the complaints about lack of resources, lack of prize money, and the rest of it. And to what extent the people in Tobago, yesterday we had a discussion with Ms. Haddad, Diane Haddad of the Tobago Chamber, the Tobago Division of the Trinidad and Tobago Chamber of Industry and Commerce, as to what is happening with the governance system in Tobago. We will try and get a response from her on that as well. So much to chew on in that segment of the program that's coming after the 7 o'clock break. We're also talking with Shelley Nelson. She's a lady who lost her job in the corporate world during the pandemic. She now runs what appears to be a successful hair braiding business in Arima. We will talk with her about making that pivot and where she is with it. We took you around the region a couple of times. We go further than that as time permits. But right now, in with us, Dr. Richard Sichiran. He's the Shadow Minister for Health in the opposition. And he's called out the government for not revealing in December, they say, the very high transmissible COVID-19 XBB 1.5 variant. He said that was in the system in Trinidad and Tobago some time ago when people were gathering for the Christmas holidays. He expressed concern over the information revealed, in which he said, "We were told that this XBB 1.5 was in our midst and we may soon have to face this storm when it comes." He said attention must be paid to the Prime Minister's statement that Trinidad and Tobago may face a different situation after the Carnival. These things and more. Dr. Sichiran, good to have you.
Good morning, Mr. Johnson. Good morning to everyone.
All right, so why do you think it's an issue for us to be concerned about?
Well, this variant seems to be the most transmissible COVID-19 variant to date. And from the information that we're getting overseas from the United States and in China, it's causing a huge increase in the number of cases as well as the number of persons that would need hospitalization and, of course, leading to death in some cases as well. So it is a concern here in Trinidad and Tobago where we as a population have not prepared sufficiently for this next wave of COVID-19. Minister Dial Singh and the Rowley administration on the whole took the position that COVID-19 had basically finished. And they stopped preparing this nation for another wave of COVID-19. We currently don't have any doses of any antiviral drugs that can combat this variant in our elderly and in our immunocompromised. If I may just show you the latest recommendations from the WHO.
Go ahead.
Which was released. This was released on the 17th of January, just a few days ago. And what they are saying is that the World Health Organization strongly recommends the use of Pfizer's Paxlovid in mild or moderate COVID-19 patients who are high risk of hospitalization. And what this drug does is that in persons that are unvaccinated, and we have many hundreds of thousands of our citizens are unvaccinated, it prevents death and severe illness in 4 out of 5 cases. So in the last 7-day reported cycle, we lost 12 citizens to COVID-19. And had we had this drug here in Trinidad and Tobago, which is available worldwide, we would have been able to save at least 10 of them.
I want to ask, where does the sort of the bulk of the or the force of the question and the concern lie? More with the political administration or with the medical leadership? Because doesn't the political administration have to take its cue from what the medical leaders are telling them and telling us?
Definitely, because the Chief Medical Officer, Dr. Parasram, is on record in early of last year stating that he doesn't think it was necessary to procure this drug And what he was saying is that we had hundreds of thousands of vaccines available here in Trinidad and Tobago, and persons should avail themselves to become vaccinated. So what he was basically saying is become vaccinated or you're on your own. And what we have even seen in China, where there's a huge outbreak of COVID-19, and China is a country that has resisted foreign drugs and therapeutics for COVID-19. They vaccinated their country solely with indigenous vaccines made in China. And they actually brought in a shipment of Paxlovid from the United States just a couple of weeks ago to help combat the situation, the very severe and concerning situation that's ongoing in China right now.
So this XBB 1.5, that is more lethal than what we had before? Is that the variant?
It isn't considered to be more lethal. It's a subvariant of the Omicron variant of the coronavirus. But what they're saying, it's the most transmissible. So you could basically be across the room from someone and you be speaking without a mask, and chances are you may actually get COVID-19 from that person. So it's the most transmissible. So this virus will find itself in every nook and cranny, in every household in Trinidad and Tobago, and it will seek out the unvaccinated persons after Carnival, because the reality of the situation is the Prime Minister is saying to be careful during the Carnival festivities, but that is quite impossible when persons have to go to fetes and they have to enjoy the Carnival festivities on Carnival Monday and Tuesday. COVID-19 will spread among many. Many persons will be asymptomatic because they would have some level of immunity already, either having acquired the virus before or becoming vaccinated, but they would be infected and they would be able to pass it on to their grandmother and their grandfather at their homes. So that is the concern. The concern is the citizens over the age of 60, as well as the immunocompromised in our society. Another point I would like to highlight is that the WHO has also said that persons over 60 and immunocompromised that have taken the Sinopharm vaccine and that have taken 2 doses of the Sinopharm vaccine, what the WHO is saying is that this is not sufficient. 2 doses apparently does not produce an adequate immune response to the COVID-19 virus. And since May of 2021, they are saying that you need 3 doses if you fall into these 2 categories to produce an acceptable level of immunity against the coronavirus.
Well, let me tell you something. I've had 4, and I'm wondering whether more is necessary at this point. And if there's a period in which the vaccine has full force, and then what does the period say in which it starts to the effectiveness starts to wane, and you probably need to bone up, as you say.
Yeah, I actually have 4 doses as well. What it has been shown is that some level of immunity does wane after 4 to 6 months, but once you're fully vaccinated according to WHO, you should be fine from severe illness and hospitalization. They don't recommend anything beyond 4 at the moment. But what I found fault with Minister Dial Singh and his health team is that they have been unable to educate those in society that have taken 2 doses of the Sinopharm vaccine that are over the age of 60, that they must get a 3rd dose in order to have some level of immunity. I'm glad
that you put it. You say they've been unable to educate, but where are you on this question about the force, the powerful force of the anti-vax community and the people who just, people say, we're used to this saying that you can take a horse to the water, but you can't make him drink. In a lot of cases, that's how people are on this question.
And that is why there are the antivirals. So, when this virus first became known to humankind, it was a novel virus. There were no therapeutics for it. Now we have vaccines and now we have therapeutics. And Paxlovid is a therapeutic. So should you become infected with COVID-19 and you're over 60 and you're immunocompromised, in many, many parts of the world, in many, many parts, you have access to oral drug that you can take, and it will basically save your life. And that's my contention with the Ministry of Health, with Minister Dial Singh and with his health team, that they have failed to procure the antiviral Paxlovid for citizens of Trinidad and Tobago, and many, many persons could have used this option in order to save their life if they became infected with COVID-19.
You think they have opted not to procure it because of some whatever reason they have in the system, in the health system, or we just didn't know how to go about, we don't know how to go about procuring it?
No, the CMO is on record of saying they would have to do a cost-benefit analysis to determine whether they would need the drug or not. And he said this roughly 6 months ago. And as I said before, after the last wave of COVID-19, the Ministry of Health basically shut down on COVID. They thought the virus was done and dusted. And as we can see, many more persons are dying, and many more will die in the coming months after Carnival. And we would have needed this drug here either by procurement or by a donation from one of our international partners.
And we didn't take the steps to do that because, as you say, this rests on your contention that the government thought we were over the hump with it, and therefore there was no need for sort of fierce, focused
preemptive measures. Yes, it's complete negligence. I actually, during the Standing Finance Committee in the last budget, which was in October of 2022, I asked Minister Dayal Singh would he procure, the reformulated COVID-19 vaccines. I asked him if he would procure Paxlovid, and he told me flat out no. And we have this on record in the Standing Finance Committee.
You think it's possible that he might have to eat his words on that?
I mean, definitely. I mean, many of these persons that are dying, they are presenting to hospital in a situation where they cannot be saved. And in many cases, these persons are unvaccinated, and they have refused to accept what the government is telling them about vaccination. And this is where Paxlovid would become so invaluable in saving these persons' lives.
In a situation like that, where are you on the decision to open back up such that we will have the throngs of people on the street over these 3 days of Carnival? Carnival, Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday.
Yeah, the United National Congress is on record of stating that we support Carnival in 2023, but we do not support any measure by Dr. Rowley and his administration to lock down this country any further. We have suffered as a nation too much economically, and many persons have not recovered from the last lockdowns. Many persons have lost their jobs. Many employers have lost their businesses, and we are not in support of any further lockdowns. All we are asking is that the medical team do their due diligence and do their job, procure what is needed at the hospital level, as well as to implement many of the recommendations by the Simangal report.
Yeah, and what are some of those that we haven't talked about?
They spoke of severe staff shortages, doctors having to do non-medical functions, nurses being overworked to the point of exhaustion, doctors having security concerns in terms of having to sleep in unlocked rooms, male and female doctors having to sleep in the same room, long hours in PPE, unable to take a break, unable to use the bathroom. We have the issue of short locum contracts of 1 month or 3 months, doctors having no security of job employment. We also have the issue of 1 nurse to 6 ventilated patients in the ICU, 1 nurse to as much as 30 patients in the ward. We also have the lack of procurement of tocilizumab, which is also a life-saving drug for COVID-19, and the lack of procurement in adequate quantities of midazolam, methylprednisolone, and propofol. So many of the issues raised by Professor Simangal and his very distinguished and experienced medical team have gone unnoticed by Minister Dayal Singh and his health team. And we are in a situation where we are facing possibly another surge in cases, another surge in, unfortunately, COVID-19 deaths in this country. And we are not prepared. We haven't learned from our past mistakes. And it seems that the government is intent on making the same mistakes again.
Yeah, you're not in fear that you would be accused as we go along about overstating the situation and probably causing unnecessary panic?
Well, roughly 1 month ago, Andy, we had almost no COVID-19 cases. And as we speak today, we have 519 new cases in the last 7-day reported cycle. We have 12 deaths in the last 7-day cycle. And we also have 71 persons in hospital. We don't actually know the breakdown of how many are in HCU and how many are in ICU, but we will have more and more deaths in the coming weeks. Dr. Avery Hines of the health team also said that there's an increased positivity in the number of COVID-19 cases that are coming through the system. So what that means is that more and more persons that are presenting for tests are positive. And with increasing festivities over the carnival period, as well as the influx of persons from the United States, where XBB 1.5 is very prevalent, we will of course see more and more of cases of this variant. And as I said, it's the most transmissible in a carnival setting where people are basically skin to skin in the roads and in the fetes. I've seen some pictures on the newspapers and there's not a mask to be found. And you don't expect there to be in a fete. But my point is everyone would basically have COVID-19 in the next couple of weeks, whether they are symptomatic or not.
Yeah. And you talk about the medical team that advised Dr. Simangal as opposed to the medical team in charge of putting the arrangements in place for us. And all of them have been well, finally awarded or recognized, but there have been people who have seen them as not having done the job for which they are being commended or have been commended thus far. Where are you on that?
Our contention is that this is a very inexperienced team, a very young group of doctors. Dr. Rowley and his administration got a very young cohort of doctors that are very, very early in their professional careers. And in some cases, you know, we have issues whether they were able to stand up to political pressure or if they just crumbled to what the political directorate imposed upon them at the time. And if you look at Professor Simangal's team, very, very well experienced, very well respected professionals regionally and internationally. Professor Pitt Miller, Professor Simangal, just to name a few of them. They are very, very, very well recognized persons in the medical fraternity. And we would have expected that Prime Minister Keith Rowley would have used individuals such as this to lead our COVID-19 response, and individuals that would have given him a very independent and a very medically oriented approach to combating COVID-19. And many of the issues we have seen with the health team, you know, it goes to, you know, you have to wonder if they are basically in awe of the politicians that they are being directed by. And
you think that way? I mean, you put that at the feet of Dr. Parasram. I mean, I don't know his vintage, but I can tell you Dr. Hines, I've known him for more than 30 years, and he's always been a public health doctor over that period of time. You described him as young and inexperienced. I'm not sure about Dr. St. John and the others, but you think they are as
I myself have known Avery for the last over 30 years. We entered Form 1 together at St. Mary's.
Yes.
And my point being that they are much more experienced doctors that Prime Minister Rowley could have used in the COVID-19 fight. And many of the decisions that the health team made, or many of the indecisions that they made, fall squarely at their feet. If you would recall, March of 2021, when Prime Minister Rowley said, everyone who wants to go to Tobago can go. And at the time, Tobago had 4 deaths and was COVID-19 free and pristine. And what we saw was COVID-19 persons traveling to Tobago and infecting that island. And currently, Tobago has over 287 deaths or thereabouts. And what happened is he allowed the virus to spread in Tobago when not enough persons that were immunocompromised and over the age of 60 were vaccinated. And that is something that the health team could have put their foot down and said, no, Dr. Rowley, we don't have enough vaccines in this population as yet. you should not open up this country as yet to persons from Trinidad and Tobago. And that is basically what we are trying to say. Do you have the mettle in your system to stand up to someone like Dr. Rowley and said, no, this is not correct. I cannot support this from a medical point of view.
Yeah, and so you lay that at the feet of Dr. Parashram and his team. I just wanted to go back on the presumed lethality, if it's correct, about this subvariant, because I think the Prime Minister said at his last press conference that it is not as lethal as what we've had before, and every variant that comes subsequently will be less sort of damaging and less...
Well, that is the normal course of these coronaviruses, and it would become endemic in the population and become less lethal as it goes along. But that being said, from what we are seeing in China, where as much as 5,000 persons are dying per day, and what we are seeing in the United States, where hundreds are dying per day, it is lethal enough to kill those over 60 and the immunocompromised.
Yeah, I just want to ask you, we have about a minute or so left. What was your reaction to the decision by Mr. Sukai to take this appointment as a government senator? Was that you think that's surprising to people in Shogunas, and you probably have to explain that to some of the people?
Well, we wish Mr. Sukai all the best, but we don't see him making any impact in the political climate, so to speak. You know, Mr. Sukai did what he thought was best for him and his family, and we wish him all the best.
All right, that's as diplomatic as one could get. Thank you very much, Dr. Sichura and Dr. Richard Sichura, and Shadow Health Minister. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me, sir.
All right, more on the other side. We'll take a break. When we come back, we'll be talking with, no, not Dr. Israel, she's in the second hour. It's Shelley Nelson, a lady who is now running a thriving braiding business in Arima after having lost her job in corporate Trinidad and Tobago during the heights of the pandemic. Stay with us.
At Belgroves, celebrating life is our commitment with integrity, compassion, and dignity for your loved ones. Belgroves Funeral Home and Crematorium, serving Trinidad and Tobago for over a century.
FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today.
The best laptops and tablets are at dbesttoys.com. Get a Gateway 14.1-inch Ultra Slim notebook or an HP 14-inch laptop at the best prices in TNT. Get the Fire 7 tablet for $474. You can also shop the latest Amazon Fire Sticks. Call now at 32-DBEST to order or visit us in-store at Forces flagship MacBean. Shop online now at dbesttoys.com. Free delivery available throughout Trinidad and Tobago. Cash or links on delivery.
Every word, every line, every paragraph depicts a real moment in someone's life. A father, a sister, a mother, a brother. We at Newsday are dedicated to you, the people, and through independent, unwavering journalism, strive to always bring your stories to life. Because your stories are more than just words. Newsday, independent and credible.
Take some time for yourself or spend some time with the family at Sandy Point Village Hotel. Enjoy our various studio and suite apartments, self-contained with their own kitchenettes and Wi-Fi. We also have our famous 100-foot swimming pool and our beachfront restaurant, the Steak and Lobster Grill. And our location in Crown Point puts us near the center of activity from the nylon pool to the local nightlife. Call us and make your reservations at 639-8533, 389-2378 or email us at sandypointvillagehotel@gmail.com.
Welcome back to the program. Moments from now, we'll be talking with Ms. Shelley Nelson. We'll tell you her bright story on the other side of what appeared to have been darkness. She lost her job in the corporate sector during the heights of COVID-19, and she was looking around as to what to do to earn a living. Today, as we speak, she's running what appears to be an organization on the up and up. She's opened a talent about braiding hairs, and she operates from a place in Arima. Well, I know Sanchez Street. We'll get to her in a moment, but before, let's take a look at what's happening in one of the countries around the region. It's quite next door in Grenada. There was an altercation involving a student and an adult, which has resulted in a charge against the female adult. Let's take a look at that.
Akeisha Roberts was arrested and charged with the offense of causing harm to a minor following a recent incident on a school compound involving a student. The 31-year-old secretary at Mongay St. George was placed on bail in the sum of $4,000 with one surety after a video circulating on social media showed the female slapping a secondary school student clad in her school uniform after warning her to discontinue bullying her daughter at the entrance of a local school this week. Roberts will appear at the St. George's Magistrate Court on Friday the 24th of February 2023. In light of the recent incidents of violence and other unacceptable conduct in schools by parents, teachers and students, the Royal Grenada Police Force appeals to the public to exercise calm and good judgment when dealing with conflicts. The police are reminding the general public that going onto school compounds for the purpose of confronting other persons can amount to criminal offences, and such behaviour will be treated with utmost seriousness.
All right, so this story appeared in the Newsday newspaper earlier in this week, and we thought it was encouraging enough and exciting enough to have a go at discussing it and what led to it and where we are with it. Shelley Nelson, she's the owner of an organization called the Royal Bell Hair Studio, and the title of what we're talking about is called Pushing Through the Heights of the Pandemic, because she lost her contract was not renewed during the height of the pandemic. That is in 2020, and she was rendered jobless at the time, and with little chance of finding a new job in the corporate world. She could not earn enough money for her side hustle, which was braiding. But today, that side hustle has turned into a business that is on the rise. Shelley Nelson is our guest with us. Good to see you. Good morning.
Hi, good morning.
All right,
Thanks for having me.
Well, it's very welcome. Like I said, the story was positively moving when I read it in the paper about so let's talk about how you sat down and probably were in the dumps, can't get your contract renewed, nobody was working, you had bills to pay and them kinds of things, and you were sort of scrounging around in your mind. I'm trying to envision it about what to do, and talk with us about how one thing led to the other, and you started doing a little bit more of the braiding until you realized that this guy could turn this thing around this way, right?
Yes. So I believe that I found my purpose during a pandemic, which for most persons would have been a very challenging time, not only in our jobs with the uncertainty of it, but also in our personal lives. But when destiny calls, I believe that you have to answer. So my contract came to an end around probably like mid-2020. That was in the heights of the pandemic, and I was job hunting. Even before the contract came to an end, I was job hunting to secure something else. And I was just unsuccessful. Most persons weren't hiring at that time. And I always knew how to braid. I remember the earliest memory I have of braiding is when I was 9 years old. I did my sister's hair in micro braids. That's the really tiny braids.
At 9 years old?
Yes, 9 years old, child labor, yes. But, I always had a passion for it. And through my teenage years, I would have braided my own hair. That's when I really started to perfect the craft. And when I got my first job, I remember that's when I got my first client. It was a co-worker of mine. I redid the front of her braids. Someone did it before, and she just asked me to redo it. And I was so excited. I did it. She paid me a small sum of money. And I was like, okay, at that moment, I didn't believe that I could turn it into a career, but it was always something that I believed that I could have as a side hustle. So fast forward to my contract coming to an end, I said, okay, I needed money to do things. And I just fell back on braiding. Now, I graduated with my master's at UE, and I thought that HR would have been that would have been my path as a career. I really wanted to become an HR consultant. So I had to put that on pause for a little while because I wasn't able to get a job to get some more experience. So I continued braiding. At the time, I think I would have had a couple of clients. So 2 clients would have turned into 3 and 4 and 5, and it just multiplied from there. And I relied heavily on social media. I posted on Instagram. I did some networking with some models. I did a lot of promo work. And from there, it just expanded and my clientele grew and grew and grew. And I reached a point where I said, okay, I do not want to go back into the corporate world because I was able to take care of myself and provide for myself, basically. So, yeah, that's how I got to this point right now where I'm able to, where I started the business. I have a clientele. Sometimes I book a month in advance, especially during the carnival season. Past Christmas season was really well also. And yeah, I just believe that my story could inspire others and give them the strength to pursue their own passions and live a life of purpose.
Yes, where were you employed prior, where the contract was not renewed?
Oh, I was at UE. It was at a fundraising office.
Yeah, at the St. Augustine campus. But you say,
yes.
you say so long for HR management and so on.
Yes, I studied HR at UE. I did both a bachelor and a master's in management studies. For postgrad, I did an HR specialization, and for undergrad, I did both an HR and a marketing minors.
Well, so one imagines that you would put those HR studies and the extent to which you've worked in that area in management to manage your own business now.
Yes, I used a lot of what I learned to be able to shape it in a way where I'll be able to, well, I do plan on expanding. So I used a lot of my marketing experience as well as HR experience to help grow the business and network as well.
Yeah, and I'm looking you up on the net and so on. And I was sort of fascinated with the different kinds of sort of what do you call it, styles of braiding that I was seeing from one to the other. You know, I mean, last evening I can tell you, I was just going through this file and going back to you know, if I had here, I would probably want to get it done from some of the styles that I've seen.
I could make a nice wig for you. Don't worry.
What's been the feedback for what is now sort of an expanding? You're developing an expanding profile in this side of the working world. What's been the feedback from that story, apart from this discussion now?
A lot of, and I didn't expect it to turn out this way. An article was posted, and I expected probably like a few likes here and there, and probably a couple of comments. But I think I counted over 15 comments from women who were inspired by my story and who also wanted to start their own business ventures. Not only, actually, they wanted to leave their jobs to start their own business. One person told me that she loves makeup and she wanted me to help her, to mentor her and be a coach, which I'm really open to doing. Because another dream of mine is to create a space where vulnerable girls and women are able to come together and learn tangible skills that could allow them to monetize it and probably in the future start their own business ventures as well.
Yeah, I think you said some of that in the piece that was in the paper, right?
Yes, it was.
And so how do you make that pivot, or how are you going to embrace that with what you do now? You probably have a plan at work all now as we speak, huh?
Yes, I do. Because things are a bit busy right now, I'm trying to grow the business. That's taking a lot of my time, but I do have that on my list of goals. I believe in the power of networking, so I know that I can't do that on my own. I'll definitely have to partner with some larger organizations who would have had experience working with women, vulnerable girls, and things like that. I'll definitely want to target maybe a few homes, some single families, different things like that. I know of a few persons personally, so I'll start there and hopefully branch out and expand. Who knows, it could begin locally and then go regionally and probably abroad.
Yeah.
So yes, that's my...
Right, I knew there was a time when women didn't like to reveal their ages, but all I would say is that it's here, but I wouldn't say the number. But you have a long road ahead, given where you are, sort of chronologically. You're still in your 20s.
Yes. Yes, I am. I started the business when I was 25 years old. I'm still in my 20s, yes. But I would say to persons, starting early is very important because you need good things take time to grow. You know, I didn't want to be, let's say, wake up one morning and I'm 50 and now trying to scramble together and try to decide what I wanted to do with my life. So starting early is very important.
So, you know, there's a saying that out of evil cometh good, but the pandemic might not, but to some extent it was, but you know, how a bad situation has turned into, you know, a new road, and there's a whole avenue, a whole multi-lane avenue in front of you now, and you're going to pursue that with a kind of vengeance. Yeah?
Sorry, could you repeat that?
Yeah, I'm saying that,
I didn't hear that clear.
Yeah, what one is seeing is that there's a highway of opportunity one sees in front of you, and you're going to pursue that. From what you're talking about there, you know, there are different planks on which you want to walk forward. And this is going to be an interesting journey. A lot has been opened up because of what looked like a dark day 2 years and more ago.
It comes from having a lot of faith and being sure of yourself. It's not something that I would recommend that persons just go headfirst into carelessly. You have to have a plan, a very solid plan. And as I said before, I believe in the power of networking. It's not possible to do it alone. You need help. You need to build a team. Right now, I'm doing it by myself, but I do plan on building a solid team where I'll be able to do a lot more, because doing it by yourself, I mean, you only have so many hours in the day. So it's definitely important that you pull together or band together a group of persons that will have the same vision and can execute on with the same level of energy that you can, so that you'll be able to achieve the same goals.
Yeah. And did you say, would I get the sense that when you're talking about expansion, you probably will have to move out from where you're operating now, and you're looking at those things down the road? How does one in your situation, given what is a almost enviable skill set, what are you thinking now as to what will happen 6 months from now, a year from now, where you see it?
So the Royal Bell brand.
Yes.
I see my brand as being an all-encompassing beauty hub for women. So I definitely I love hair, so that's why I started with hair. So I see myself expanding into other areas of beauty. Who knows, maybe makeup, fashion, just public speaking to inspire women. Because I see a lot of girls and young women who need motivation. They need to hear stories. They need to feel inspired. Those sort of things. What the service that I provide, yes, it's physical beauty, but I believe in the inner beauty of women as well. So I definitely want to expand into areas of physical as well as internal beauty.
Yeah.
The brand will
go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, in addition to being I do see myself moving regionally and hopefully internationally one day.
Yeah. And you have to have all these things. Imagine that as you go along, you just tick off. You tick off. And
yes.
How
very excited.
Yeah. How did the Newsday find out about your operations and find you?
Well, actually, I was talking to my brother-in-law this morning about that. I think I would have reached out to someone. It was a journalist. And the person, they said that they would get back to me. And I didn't see a response, but then I got an email. No, it was a message. I got a message via WhatsApp about they wanted to organize the shoot, to do the article. And I was like, okay. No one got back to me at the time that I reached out to them, but I felt like they would have put me onto someone, and that's how the article was featured. So I was contacted, I gave the story, and the article, it blew up. I didn't expect it to be that big, but it really touched a lot of persons, and I'm really glad for that.
Yeah, and so what is your message to people who might be in a similar situation, might have been in a similar situation, in the corporate world and got knocked out because of the pandemic and maybe still struggling to get back on their feet? What do you think your story says to them, and how would you counsel people? Because from what you're saying is that counseling not in the sort of classical form, professional form, but I see that as part of your template, talking with people, helping people through difficulty. So what do you say to people who may be struggling and can't get back on their feet, struggling to get back on their feet as a result of the impact of the pandemic? How do you use your story to motivate people?
My first piece of advice would be to start small. I started very small. I started braiding from my gallery. Even before my gallery, I did house calls, and I would go to persons after work on weekends, which was really difficult. But I started small because in addition to that, I think that person it takes a lot of reflection on figuring out the ideal balance between reward and challenge. So for me, my job was challenging, but it wasn't rewarding. And as an individual, only you could figure out what is your purpose. You have to really take time to reflect and just try different things. Like, for instance, someone was telling me that they didn't think that they have any skills or anything like that. And I was like, okay, do you have any hobbies, any things that you tried? They said, no. I said, okay, you have to try different things, see what you like, see what the market wants, and try and just give your service. I started working on photo shoots for events for free. Not all the time you'll be able to get money out of the work that you do, but you start small, take whatever little money you could, and really try to put yourself out there. That's all I can say. You really have to start small and just grow from there, grow and expand from there, and you will make it.
And when you're going about it, do it in a way that whatever you do, you're seeing that you're planting a seed, or you're planting your foot down for what may come, so you give it your best effort all the time. Sometimes a lot of people operate that because what I'm doing here is not what I really want to do, I don't put everything into it, and that in that way we shortchange ourselves to some extent, right?
Yes. Yeah.
I
had a lot of self-doubt at the start.
We lost you there with the communication. You say you had a lot of self.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
You had a lot of self something, and we lost you there.
I had a lot of self-doubt at the start because I didn't think that breeding could have been something that I could actually turn into a business. I mean, I studied for so long. I had dreams of becoming an HR consultant. And then I had one person tell me, why are you doing your master's and you're going into breeding? Mm-hmm. And I'm just, having negative persons around you can really...
And what was your response? What was your response to that?
Actually, I didn't respond to her. I just completed my master's and I started working, and I'm here now. I started my business.
Yeah, and it's on the up and up.
Yes, of course it is, and I'm really glad for that.
Right. How did you choose the name, the Royal Bell Hair Studio?
So Royal is something that I think it's an adjective that describes all breed styles. There's something about breed that really transforms you into this royal type of person. And Belle, of course, is a beautiful woman. So I just put the two together, and there the name was.
She's royal.
Yes.
All right, it's been a great story. It's been great talking to you. Shelley Nelson of the Royal Bell here studio at Sanchez Street in Arima. Don't be surprised if you see me walking there one of these days.
Yes. I'll look out.
Thank you very much. We will take a break. We'll come back as we head up to the top of the hour. Stay with us. This is AM Prime here on WESN.
What's the best way to grab the attention of viewers?
Please exercise more patience. You have to be kidding me.
Doing what we do best. I'll say at the very least it's a conspiracy of laziness against the people.
Join me, Keaton Shaw.
And me, Sean Michael Small, for Talking Point.
Weekdays from 8 a.m. to 9:30 a.m.
We go in-depth on the trending issues and engage the most controversial newsmakers
as we get them to account to the people for their actions.
You can't go to the government with nothing. You can't go to cabinet with an empty hand, with a wish.
I'm glad that we're having this a sober, mature discussion.
In the present situation, I expect a continuation of the chaos.
Join us for the discussion, Mondays to Fridays,
only on WESN,
the content capital.
Join me, Dr. Nalini Kokram, on What's Up Doc, where we discuss all your burning questions concerning health.
Trinidad and Tobago is among one of the highest risk group of patients that develop this form of genetic breast cancer.
What I'd like to take home from a short interview like this: screening. You must screen.
Because it's silent.
It's silent.
Yeah.
And because it's silent, you don't know it's there.
What's Up Doc, every Tuesday and Thursday on WESN, Content Capital.
Is it politics? What is it? Is it that nobody cares about sports?
The kind of support that sport used to get in the past is no longer here.
The thing is, taking a knee doesn't mean that that's the only thing you're doing on it.
Right.
Taking a knee along with other stuff.
Samantha, what are you looking forward to when you return home to Trinidad and Tobago after winning the title?
Thank you very much for speaking it into existence.
Is it no pressure on Nicholas Paul?
It makes me more motivated to work hard and to go out there and rep the right and black.
Why are we sending a team to the Winter Olympics?
There are a number of Trinbagonians who are in the diaspora and have grown up in winter sport. It's an opportunity that the Trinidad and Tobago Olympic Committee will not close the door on.
I also believe in the players that we have. Once you can motivate the players, you can get the best out of them.
All right, welcome back to the program. In a moment, we will be talking with Dr. Faith B. Israel on the situation in Tobago. She's the Deputy Chief Secretary and the Secretary for Health there. But before we do that, let's take a look at what's happening outside of the region in our international file this morning. At least 16 people, including Ukraine's Interior Minister, other senior officials, and 3 children were killed on Wednesday when a helicopter crashed near a nursery outside of Kyiv, the capital.
Well, it's clear that it's an increasingly bitter...
What more do we know about what happened?
Well, I'm standing in front of the kindergarten where the helicopter came down. It's that building there. Behind me, the helicopter apparently came down on a trajectory going in that direction and fell also on part of the children's playground beside the kindergarten. All of the people on board were killed, and that included Ukraine's Interior Minister, Denis Monastyrsky, his first deputy and the State Secretary in the Interior Ministry, and 6 other people. And then there are another 9 people who have been killed, including 3 children, due to the helicopter falling in the vicinity of this kindergarten.
Gulliver, do we know any more? Do we have any idea about what might have caused this crash? If it was an accident or perhaps not?
No, and the authorities are really placing great emphasis on the need not to speculate. Already, all sorts of theories have been appearing on the internet. We know that it was very foggy. That's one thing we know. We know, apart from that, that the General Prosecutor of Ukraine, the police, and a huge team has already arrived to start investigating. Actually, there are investigators around the other side of the building where you can see rather more damage to the building than you can from the angle where I'm positioned at. But they told journalists to move away from that area to stop hampering the investigation work. They're really stressing the need to not speculate. It may well have just been an accident, but they are also saying that they are not ruling out any hypothesis at this stage. At the moment, there are lots of investigators around here and also lots of local people who are, of course, in great shock at what has happened. And it seems that at least one child is still unaccounted for, because I saw members of his family talking on the phone and looking extremely distressed, of course, hoping that this child will be found.
And here's this other interesting feature from France. They say where the mayor of a town called Amiens in northern France has released a video requesting that Madonna loan the city a painting from her personal collection, which resembles one of those lost during World War I.
Madonna, vous ne connaissez probablement pas la ville d'Amiens, ville dont j'ai l'honneur d'être le maire, mais depuis quelques jours, un lien particulier s'est noué entre vous-même et notre ville.
It's this single social media post from Madonna which could link her to the city of Amiens. Art historians have noticed the painting above the staircase. The singer picked it up at a 1989 auction at Sotheby's for $1.3 million. And while it has no signature, it closely resembles this 1822 painting by Jérôme Martin Langlois, except for 3 centimeters in height.
Une des hypothèses, c'est que le tableau...
One theory is that the painting was cut in its lower half to remove the signature and the date of the piece.
The painting was on display at the Amiens Museum until the city was bombed in 1918. It then disappeared from the inventory of museums in France. And while some doubts may still exist, the mayor of Amiens seems certain.
Nous sommes candidats pour être capitale européenne de la culture en 2028. Alors j'aimerais que, à cette occasion, en 2028, vous puissiez nous prêter votre tableau.
Madonna, who has just announced a world tour, has not yet responded to the mayor's appeal. Amiens' bid to become Europe's capital of culture will be decided later this year.
All right, this point we take a break now. We go to the news. On this other side of the news, Dr. Faith D. Israel, Deputy Chief Secretary and Secretary for Health in the Tobago House of Assembly. Another good news story, if you want to say. 17 students from the Pacific Lutheran University in Washington, USA, will take part in an internship program in Tobago. We will discuss that with Dr. Israel on the other side. Stay with us. This is AM Prime here on WESN.
Here is your WESN News on the Hour. I am Denise Martin. Thanks for joining us. Here are the headlines. Former minister under UNC's regime praises PNM's selection of Richie Sukai as senator. Arrests made in relation to vandalism of Karapo Temple. A man charged with murder. And internationally, woman and boy killed by polar bear in Alaska town. Now for the details. The selection of Richie Sukai by the PNM to replace Christine Kangaloo in the Senate is an astute and politically clever move by Dr. Rowley, who continues to outperform, outmaneuver and outfox his counterpart in the opposition. So says former government minister under the UNC government, Vasant Bharath. Bharat praised Sukai's wealth of business knowledge and family upbringing as his backing for a good candidate for the post. National Security Minister Fitzgerald Hines has confirmed that charges were laid against persons who were found guilty of vandalizing the Karapo temple.
Officers of the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, Northern Division North, conducted an exercise which resulted in the arrest of one person who was subsequently charged for the offense of sacrilege committed at the Karapo temple, having defaulted on payment of a fine imposed by the Arima magistrate at the Arima Magistrates Court in July of 2022. The accused was taken to the Golden Grove prison where he was confined.
The minister said the TTPS is actively taking steps to avoid further occurrences.
I am certain that in the generality, in the very arduous efforts of the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service to police this country and to maintain law and order, they would have been paying particular attention to places of worship in light of that kind of activity, providing the patrols and the security that is obviously required in those circumstances. It is not, however, only a matter for the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service. It also directly involves the municipal police.
A 49-year-old man of no fixed place of abode has appeared before a superior magistrate charged with the murder of Anthony Wilson, which occurred in November 2022. Lawrence Dyer, a laborer, appeared in court on Monday. 63-year-old Wilson of Forest Reserve Road, Faizabad, was at his home on November 18th when he got into an argument with another man. During the altercation, the victim was stabbed in the chest and died at the scene. Investigations into the incident resulted in the arrest of a male suspect by officers of the Homicide Bureau of Investigations. In international news now, a woman and boy were killed by a polar bear that had been chasing residents in a tiny remote community in Alaska, state troopers said on Tuesday. The bear had chased residents after entering the western Alaskan town of Wales before attacking the woman and boy, an Alaska state trooper dispatch report said. The bear was shot and killed by another resident as it attacked the two victims, according to the report. Troopers and the Alaska Department of Fish and Game are working to travel to Wales as weather conditions allow, said the report. Well, that was News to the Hour on WESN. I am Denise Martin. Thanks for watching.
Welcome back to the program. Well, you could say this is another good news story. Certainly, we've seen it as such. 17 students from the Pacific Lutheran University in Washington, the state of Washington in the USA, will take part in an internship program in Tobago. The social science students have been placed in various units in the Division of Health, Wellness and Social Protection. The secretary for that section in the administration in the THA is Dr. Faith B. Israel, Deputy Chief Secretary and Secretary for Health. She's with us now. She's no stranger to these cameras and these facilities here at WESN. Good to see you, ma'am.
Thanks for having me. Thank you so much. It's an honor being here today.
All right. Do you miss it? Participating with the guys on
Do I miss it? I do. Those were simpler times, certainly.
Well, interesting. I like your honesty there. But and so let's get to this. There's some other things I would hope time permits us to talk about. That since you say that those were simpler times, you know, it's not what you do now is not as simple as that. And I want to get to that if time permits. But how did this? What do you call this? A program, a project, an intervention? How did this come about?
Certainly, this is actually not the first time it's happening in Tobago. A couple years ago, the students were coming. Are we having technical issues?
It appears so, but I heard you. So go ahead. It's probably the internet. Go ahead.
So yeah, right. So a couple years ago, we did have students coming from Pacific Lutheran. Because of COVID, they had to stop. But earlier last year, we got a call again and a visit from the principals indicating that they were interested in coming back to Tobago, that they had a large number who were just sitting waiting for this time. So it really is one of those feel-good stories, because it's just students who are doing social sciences. So some of them may be in social work, some of them are in education, some of them are different aspects of social sciences. And they just wanted to get an opportunity to see what the real world looks like and outside of their normal space. So they decided to come to Tobago. We have placed them in various units within the division. They are also working with some of the NGOs that are within the space. So yeah, I think it's a pretty good opportunity for both the students and the individuals who they are paired with in the division.
So what do they take with them, you think? What have they been taking with them over the years that this has been in operation?
They've been learning how it really works on the ground. When we are doing these things theoretically in our classrooms, they tell us that this may be a situation that you may come across, but they have the opportunity to actually interact with clients, to actually sit with the social workers sometimes when they are, interacting with the clients, to help with the reports that are coming out of the interactions. They are in essence learning on the job while being mentored. And I think this is what all social science programs should include. As a matter of fact, when I went to school to do my master's and doctoral degree, I did quite a bit of this as well. So I can attest to how beneficial a program like this is when it comes to matching what you learn in the textbook to what you actually see happening on the ground.
Yeah, and on the other side of it, what are some of the things that they leave with the people in Tobago, the people with whom they interact and so on? What do you think?
Certainly. Well, the social workers and the other officers, because it's not just social workers they are interacting with, they have an opportunity to share. They have an opportunity to teach. They have an opportunity to learn, as a matter of fact, of different ways of thinking about things. Because again, these are students who are born and raised in the United States. We definitely do things differently. As it relates to culture and so forth. And they have the opportunity to recognize that, what happens in Tobago is not necessarily the only way of doing things. It's not necessarily the only way of interacting. So I think it's a really good cross-learning opportunity. And we are going to venture into having some of our students in Tobago do a similar kind of internship like in other places outside of Tobago, so that they can have that same experience sometime in the near future.
Yeah, and how do you know how the university itself was chosen, or they chose Tobago? How did it work?
They chose Tobago. I really don't know how they chose Tobago the first time they did it several years ago, but they're the ones who picked Tobago. Of course, Washington, US is certainly does not have the same temperature as we are experiencing here. So I thought, I know that was a critical factor, that it's nice and warm and sunny. As a matter of fact, a significant chunk of what they do here is spending time going to our, tourism attraction and the beaches and the waterfalls and the forests and so forth. So I am not sure how they made the decision the very first year, which was several years ago, but they keep coming back.
Yeah, so this has been a sort of ongoing exchange kind of program. Do health professionals or health students from Tobago enjoy that kind of exchange on the other way, going up?
At this point, not at this point, but it is something that we are looking into building out. because we do have quite a number of social protection students, social work and psychology and so forth on the island. But it is something that we are exploring, how we can provide our students with the same kind of interaction, the same kind of learning experience that these students are getting.
Yeah. Are there any other kinds of programs, whether in the health area or otherwise, in which the Assembly and the administration is involved, in partnerships like this with places outside?
Well, we are actually working towards doing it for some medical schools that are outside of Trinidad and Tobago, and they need a space to do their internship, looking at how, seeing if we can place them at the Roxborough Health Facility and the Scarborough Health Facility. But of course, that takes a little bit more time, a little bit more setting up. We are not at that point just yet, but we are exploring those options. As a matter of fact, social work students frequently intern, social sciences, frequently intern with the Division of Health, Wellness and Social Protection. There are students from right here in Tobago who have been doing their internship at the division. So this isn't a new thing in that regard. It's just that this is a relatively large group coming from a foreign space. So, I guess it's highlighted a little bit more.
I want to ask you about the discussion as it relates to health in Trinidad at the moment has to do with the facing of the carnival while we watch for the further permeation of this new variant, what is called XBB 1.5 and so on. The discussion around where will that leave us after this carnival season? Are we in a position where we end up more vulnerable? How is that playing in Tobago?
Well, we're having the same discussions. We've actually been meeting. I've been meeting with my technical staff for over the last couple of weeks. We've been looking at the numbers over the last couple of weeks. What's important to know, though, is that this subvariant of Omicron, how people will get infected, it actually does not make you sick, or it does not make you as sick as variants before. So, for example, when we were talking about Delta a year and a little bit ago, Delta was actually causing you to get very sick, to be hospitalized, to go into the ICU, and to die. This is a subvariant of Omicron. It is very infectious, but it is not causing you to be sick. As a matter of fact, what we've recognized that many of the cases that have been unearthed have happened not because the individual felt like they had flu-like symptoms and needed to go to the hospital, but it happened because they had a broken hand, for example, and that caused them to go to the hospital. And now that they're in the hospital, they were tested for COVID and we recognize that they are infected. So it is that kind of subvariant that we are looking at now. We will keep looking at the numbers. We will keep monitoring it. We will make changes to policy as is needed, based on what the numbers are saying and how the numbers show themselves. And we are going to make those decisions as we move forward. But at this point, we still need to be careful. We still need to do all of the things we've been talking about: washing your hands, sanitizing, wearing your mask, and so forth. Particularly if you are in those vulnerable groups, wear your mask. If you don't feel well, definitely stay away, stay home, that kind of thing. But we are getting to the point where we are no longer thinking about COVID the way we did a year, 2 years ago, because we've learned so much about it thus far.
Well, in the first segment in the program this morning, I was talking with Dr. Richard Sicharan, and he is suggesting that well, we could come out on the other side of this at the end of the carnival season worse than we're going in, because deaths have been rising and so on. Although the issue is that the impact is not as it's predicted not to be as deadly as in the first generation of it. What's you say?
Well, certainly, as long as we have situations where we have mass gatherings, where we have more people interacting with each other, we will see a spike. So a spike is expected. The same way we basically saw a spike right after Carnival, you know, the 2-3 week period, right? Not Carnival, Christmas, the 2-3 week period right after Christmas. That is where when you looked at the charts, you saw the numbers popping up. So we do expect to see a spike right after Carnival, the 2-3 weeks following Carnival. That is how the virus works. But, you know, the part about the impact of it, that is the critical part, the impact of it. Is it causing our health system to fail? Is it causing so many people to go into the hospital so that we cannot treat with the other issues that we need to deal with in the hospital? Because that was actually one of the critical determining factors where we made the policy decisions to lock down and to keep people home and that kind of thing. So we have to take all of these things into consideration. We also have to recognize that there's also an economic factor as well. Yes, we could all stay home and not get sick, but then we don't eat, we don't recreate, we don't make money, and that brings many, many other issues as well. So it's one of those balances that we have to ensure that the public policies take into consideration the medical component, but it also takes into consideration the social and economic components.
Yeah, I want to pivot away from that a little bit and ask you about the performance of the administration in the context in which there was this internal internecine, I would say, a warfare between the Supreme Leader and the rest of you all. Yesterday we had in the program, as Diane had it, and you know, she's caustic even in the best of times, but she had nothing positive to say about the performance of the administration to this point. How do you respond to that? She says nothing is happening as was expected to be happening.
Well, I am not sure what island she's living on, because we have had significant benefits happening. Of course, this was all happening in the middle of COVID and so forth. We have come in where we have done, let's say in the education sector, we've actually done way more in terms of the actual volume and cost of school repairs within the last year. Again, because we've come out of COVID, the schools being closed for 2 years before. We've had to do the kind of work to get the schools back up and running. And we did that. We've had absolutely failing infrastructure as it relates to roads and so forth. We've had to deal with the natural disasters, because we've had in Tobago, I'm not sure if those of you in Trinidad were aware, for several weeks before Trinidad started experiencing a lot of rains and floods, we were experiencing the rains, the floods, the landslides, and we've had to deal with that. That's totally failing infrastructure. And we've been able to maintain that. We were able to bring off a very successful carnival in October after, you know, coming into office and in less than a year deciding we are going to launch into this October carnival. That was extremely successful. Of course, there are things that we will change. It was the first time. We are learning as we go along, and we will improve. As it relates to healthcare, we now have a situation where we have over 300 people who've been waiting for cataract surgeries for the last 3-4 years have gotten the cataract surgeries free, of course, to them, because we know that these are the kinds of programs that need to roll out. And I can go on and on and on as it relates to different things that have been happening in Tobago over the last year. We have to remember, though, that it's a year. I am not sure, and I think I blame us in terms of when we campaigned and we gave people so much hope. I am not sure that people are being realistic in terms of what they expect us to do in a year versus what they expect, what has been happening. Another quick example, we turned TATCO, one of the agricultural companies, into a space that is actually making money. We actually found the Capital of Paradise, which is one of our large boats. And that Capital of Paradise has been going out. We got into it, we fixed it, and we've been sending it out. And it's made over $1 million over the last year. We did not even know where that vessel was before we came in. So to say that we have done absolutely nothing, I am really not sure where that is coming from. But when you ask the regular people on the ground whether they are seeing benefits. They would tell you, yes, they are seeing benefits. Of course, we want more. Everybody wants more. But to say nothing, I am a little concerned that you would say nothing has happened when, in fact, that is absolutely not the truth.
One of the points she and others have made over the last couple of weeks about people who were expecting to be promised that payments for provision of services one way or the other from the last administration to this one should have been taking place, and there's a deficit in that as well. And so a lot of people,
if we're talking about the contractors that are being part of the audit, I am sure everyone would be very, very, very suspicious if we came in and we said we were not paying all of it, we were not paying everything, because we recognize that several things were not right with how these contracts were given, with the work and the quality of work that was being done. Now, granted, the report of the audit is taking longer than we anticipated. That is an external entity that is doing the audit, and we will make those payments based on the reports of those things. But a man come in and tell you he owes you owe him $40 million for all of these things. There is no way we would just say, here is your $40 million when we can't even find the road that you are telling us you built. So let's be practical about this, and particularly for individuals who understand business, people who understand how finances work. We are in the business of running Tobago's finances, and we are going to do that as responsibly as we can. The contractors who are owing, they will be paid what is duly owed to them, which is not necessarily the figure that they are claiming is owed to them, but we will make it right for the people of Tobago, not just the couple contractors who are making noise.
So there are issues with trying to verify what you're presented with and what is acceptable and what meets what the obligations are.
We have situations where there were contracts where we did not even know what the scope of work was for the contract. So somebody is bringing a bill that says, this is what you owe me, and there is nothing that says this is what you should have done, this is what you were contracted to do. There isn't an actual signed contract by a duly authorized official that says you were duly authorized to do this work. In some of the instances, quantity surveyors looking at them and so forth, what is written on paper in terms of what you said you did is nothing close to what is in the facility that we are looking at, and we are now trying to marry these two things to have it make sense. So when we are making those comments about us not paying contractors, let us give all of the information about why we are delaying. And it's not like we're not going to pay, but we are delaying the process because we need to get it right.
Yeah, and what is the narrative about around the claim that in cases where there are contractors on the ground in Tobago who are in line to get some pieces of the pie, those pieces of the pie are going to contractors in Trinidad?
So yes, that is a claim that is downright false. The Secretary with responsibility for infrastructure, Mr. Trevor James, spoke about this several times. There are a few, maybe 3 or 4 large contracts that were contracts that required the contractors to do the upfront financing, and they will not get paid for another year or 2 years, 3 years down the road. Those contracts were the ones that went to the large contractors in Trinidad. But if you listen to the Secretary of Finance, of Infrastructure, he will indicate that over 90%, 95% of the contracts that have been given out from his division has been given to Tobago-based contractors. So we are only talking about, when they make those statements, they are talking about the contractors that we did give to Trinidad contractors, but those are the contractors who we said to them, hey, yeah, this is a $10 million thing. We really have no money to give you right now. We need you to do the work, and you do the work and wait for a year, 2 years, 3 years before you get paid. And when you look around, most of the small contractors in Tobago did not have the capacity to do that. They would tell you they can't start the work until they get a mobilization fee. But we were still able to give up to 95% or so of the contracts given out at the division to small Tobago contractors. It's just that 5% or so that they are talking about, that making it seem that we are only giving Trinidad contractors work, which is absolutely, again, not accurate.
Yeah. And you think your side is pushing back properly in response to some of these things, because the narrative suggests from this vantage point that the administration is not living up to the expectations that you yourselves created.
So what we have admitted that we have been so busy trying to fix the colossal mess left by those individuals after 21 years that we have not done a great job at PR. We have not done a great job at highlighting all of the mess that we've been seeing, or that we came into, and what we've been quietly in the background trying to fix. We have not done a good job at that, and this is something that we have promised and we have started to do a better job at. So it is, I guess, partially our fault that we are not communicating the way we should have, but we are going to improve on that certainly.
All right, we got to leave it there. Sorry about that. Dr. Faith B. Israel, Deputy Chief Secretary and Secretary for Health and Wellness at the Tobago House of Assembly. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, before we push off, let's just tell you to watch this as the carnival season is swiftly approaching with a lot of love for a national instrument, the span. We listen to NAP's Combined Steel Orchestra perform Bunji Garland's Big Bad Soca.
Akeisha Roberts was
clarify. I think when they say NAPs combined, from what looks of it, Naparima College and Naparima Girls High School. Well, that will do it for us on this edition of the program. We thank you for watching, and we thank all our guests. We tell you, you can get in touch with us here all the time at AM Prime and at WANCC. You could send your messages to WESNCC and all our social media platforms. Thanks for watching. Half an hour from now, news at the top of the hour, followed by today's edition of Talking Point with Shah and Small. I'm Andy Johnson. See you tomorrow.
WESN.
Join me, Dr. Nalini Kokram, on What's Up Doc, where we discuss all your burning questions concerning health.